I usually love doing this particular segment of my podcast where I get to summarize and introduce my guest and the topic. The one today genuinely is so emotionally overwhelming that I was unable to edit my podcast in one stretch. I'm talking to a filmmaker, a storyteller, and we all love films. The romance, the comedy, the action, the fantasy. But then, like my guest today, there are some filmmakers who make human stories based on the reality that's happening in society. Truly, today, all I can say about my guest is that he has held up a mirror to society. And honestly, what we see in there is not something that we should be proud of. Nevertheless, it's not a moment of crying over spilled milk, if I may say that, but it's about being part of the movement. It's about starting that dialogue and being part of that dialogue and actually seeing how we can get rid of something that we see in the mirror in terms of the dark spots on humanity. Hello, and welcome to my podcast, A Pint of Imbecile Wisdom, Season 3. Today, I have with me somebody who I was quite looking forward to chatting with. He is a filmmaker based in Mumbai. You know, when you think about India, you think about either cricket, the spiritual wisdom of the land, or you think of Bollywood, which is a very unfortunate thing because there's so much more happening. And when it comes to cinema in India, there is a huge, great, rich tradition of some amazing filmmakers that has been kind of washed over by this craze of stardom and commercial cinema, as they call it. And even though most of the cinema is highly entertaining, it makes no sense. It's over the top. It's loud. Then you have a bunch of pseudo-intelligent filmmakers who try to make very thought-provoking, deep films that needs an intelligence and a PhD. But then you also have someone like my guest who makes films from the soul, which are about issues that are relevant to society. He's known for his work in theater in Mumbai, and he's right now ready with his next feature film called YesPapa, and I'm going to ask him to tell us about the whole film, what actually triggered him to make a film like this. So with me, I have my guest, my friend. I have Saif Hyder. Welcome to my podcast.
Thank you. Yeah. So, number one, I don't consider myself to be a filmmaker. I call myself a storyteller.
Very good.
And yeah, I call myself a storyteller because as you mentioned, I've been doing a lot of theater, commercial theater. So I do. When I say commercial theater, people generally in India, the perception is that commercial theater is slapstick, sex comedies, bedroom farces. What I try to do is I take up subjects which are close to my heart. For instance, the poetry of Sahil Ludhianvi and Amrita Pritam. And then you bring in some popular actors. So in that case, that was Shekhar Suman and Deepthi Nawal. You bring in great music, do great lighting, and it becomes commercial because people come and watch it. So that's my notion of commercial theater, where you sort of do what you want to do, but you package it in a way where hordes of people come and watch it. There's no point in doing something and nobody comes to watch it. So that's one way. That's one of the ways I narrate my stories because I want people to hear them.
So, Saif, you've also been known to make romantically related subjects.
Yeah, so intense love stories. Like, for instance, Ek Mulaqat, the play I was talking about, talks about the intense relationship between Sahil Ludhianvi and Amrita Pritam. Then I did a play called Gardish Mein Tare, which focused on the private lives of Guru Dutt and Geeta Dutt, the
Okay.
filmmaker Guru Dutt and his wife Geeta Dutt. Just before lockdown, I had started a play called Dearest Bapu Love Kasturba. That was an intimate retelling of the story of, again, the private life of Mahatma Gandhi and Kasturba Gandhi. Again,
Wow.
essentially a love story. So
Okay.
there, the freedom struggle was there, everything was there, but that was in the background. What
Okay.
was in the foreground was were these two human beings, flesh and blood, talking about their marriage of 60 years. So essentially, yeah, that's so people call them love stories. I don't contradict them. Yeah, these are essentially love stories. These are human dramas between a man and a woman, and yeah, so I've been known for that.
Okay. And what is the theater scene like right now in India?
Bad because of COVID, post lockdown, post COVID, the audience is not there.
But before the pandemic, what was the scene like?
Oh, it was buoyant. Everybody was doing different kinds of plays,
Okay.
and so before the pandemic, it was absolutely fabulous. Everybody there was an audience for every kind of play, every kind of budget, every kind. So for instance, there are auditoriums where I mean, which have a capacity of 200 people. There are auditoriums which have a capacity of 1,500 people, and they were all doing something or the other. But that was pre-pandemic.
And
There
was
were,
that just in Mumbai, or do you think that was the flavor
I think,
across India?
it was across India. Delhi. See, in Mumbai, so in India, there are a couple of major centers. Mumbai is one, Delhi is one. Uh, Kolkata has a vibrant culture, but there's not too much theatre there. So it's so, and the rest of India basically is the theatre from Delhi and Mumbai, which goes to other parts of the city.
Okay.
So people may disagree with me and say, "Arey yaar, Marathi theatre." I know there is Marathi theatre, there is Gujarati theatre, but it's not pan India. That's
Okay.
not pan India. So it's Hindi theatre, English theatre, which is pan India, and there are a lot of people who are doing very good work. But sadly, the pandemic shut it off. So now people are generally performing in auditoriums which have like 180, 200 capacity, still running to 50%. So if there's 100, people are very happy. Are 100 log aa gaye. 100 people have come in. So yeah, so it's sad now, but let's see. And I think it's the world over right now, because you're not hearing of any big productions anywhere in the world.
Okay.
No new productions happening anywhere in the world. People are just waiting and figuring out what to do. A lot of people have lost their livelihoods because of the pandemic, and I'm talking about my industry.
Okay. So yeah, sorry. So before we come to the main topic, we're going to talk about Saif. Just while we're staying on this whole theater and films
Yeah.
kind of matter, I mean, you've been known to be working with actors and not stars, so to speak. It's a
Yeah.
very big thing in India. For example, if you're making a film, it's not so much about which actors you're going to have in a film. It's about which stars are going to come and sell the movie
Yeah.
at the box office. Do you think, with the influx of the OTT platform, that the value of is the tide changing in that perspective?
It's more of lip service right now. Even there, I'm being very blunt.
Yeah.
You asked, cast kya hai? What's the cast?
Yeah.
So nobody talks about what your subject is. It's more about who's in the cast.
Okay.
That's the way to sell your film. That's the way. See, ultimately, it boils down to economics. It's not a preference. I'm sure everybody wants to work with good actors, but the market forces or the representatives of the market generally dictate that you get stars because the assumption is that the stars will get you eyeballs or footfalls in the case of cinema. So, but yes, what is happening is something very interesting. Because of OTT, people are now watching Malayalam cinema, people are watching regional language cinema without actually knowing who the cast there is. You know, so that is interesting. So it's a kind of a self-contradictory phase where when it comes to Hindi, everybody wants to know what the cast is. But once you go into the regional zone, I think there the plot and the subject matters more.
Which is how it should be. So,
yeah.
So now moving away from theatre a bit, you've also dabbled with cinema a bit as well.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that background of that.
So I'll tell you. There was this play of mine called Gardish Mein Tare, I mentioned earlier, called about Gurudat and Geeta Dutt. So Nandita Das and her company, so this is before YesPapa. So they sort of took my play and they wanted me to shoot it. I did not shoot it with the 3-camera setup in the format of a play. I shot it, I changed the play and converted it into a screenplay. We kept certain restrictions which they had. They didn't want a fourth wall. So we did all that, but we performed on a set, we built a set, and we shot it like a feature film. I got a DOP from Hindi cinema, Karthik Ganesh. He shot the entire film. There are a lot of FTI graduates who were doing that. It's now available on Z5. Earlier, it was available on Hotstar. So, what happened during that period? And secondly, like all of us in the media, I was always interested in films. I never attempted a film simply because I was very happy doing theatre, and I was leading a decent life by doing theatre, and I was too busy with theatre. I mean, I was doing shows almost every weekend. Rather, every weekend I was doing 10 shows a month. So with that kind, so I was always focusing on, okay, let's do this show like this, let's do this show like this, and I had 3 shows always on board at the same time. But then I had this plot for a feature film, which a lot of people told me, do it into a play. I said, no, I don't want to do that into a play. I want to make a film out of it. So it was about, so I had, so now there's something very interesting. I saw a small skit. I was invited to a college festival and I saw a small skit by a young girl where she was talking about how a butterfly used to enter her room on a daily basis and she would play with that butterfly. One day the butterfly bit her and she realized it was not actually a butterfly, it was an insect. It was a poisonous insect. And the reference was to her father. That was the first time, and coincidentally, I was also, I don't know what made me, maybe something which I read. See, the news about fathers raping their daughters, I've read them at least 4 times a week for the last 5 years in major newspapers. They've been all out there. So I was contemplating something for several years on this subject, but the format was different. I mean, I was trying to deconstruct it, or rather build it up in the format of a thriller and stuff like that. But when I saw that play, that skit, something within me shook. It just shook me up. And I had this broad sketch of the plot, what I wanted to do about this girl who's killed her father. There's a trial going on, and what happens in the end. So I spoke to a couple of actors, cinema actors, who I've been very close to. They've seen my plays, and the first reaction was, "Are you mad? ये subject क्यों बना रहा है?
Why are you making this? Yeah.
Yeah. Are you mad? Why are you making this? You always make love stories." and uh, and then I went from one actor to another actor, and they all said, "Lovely script, lovely subject. Do you have any other part in the film for us?" Nobody wanted to play the father. Nobody wanted. Some said, "Give us some other role." Some said, "Come up. I'd love to work with you, but on some other script, not this." So I guess it was a tally of 15 actors at least who said no to
Wow.
me. And but then you don't give up. You keep going from one actor to another actor. And some who said yes, their managers quoted a preposterous fee. So I guess that was also a nice way of saying no. Uh, so then ultimately I went to Mr. Anand Mahadevan. I spoke to him and I told him the subject, and he said something very interesting. So a lot of filmmakers who I knew told me, "Don't make the subject now." They said, "Make it some other time. We are not living in good. These are not good times." But something within me said, "If you don't make it now, you'll die." And I was there. I wanted to make it. So Mr. Anand Madhavan said something very interesting. He says in Bollywood, in the Hindi film industry, if 100 people tell you no, then it's time for you to go ahead and do the same thing.
Okay.
And I said, okay. So I broke my fixed deposit. I borrowed money from friends. And I remember the day I announced it to myself that I am now making the film. After 2 years, so nobody was willing to fund it. Nobody was willing to. A couple of OTTs, in fact, told me make this into a thriller. They said a very interesting thing. Even porn is not father-daughter. Why are you making a film on this subject?
So this for a second, say, sorry, just for my audience to know now, we are moving into the main topic of this conversation is this film that you've made called YesPapa, which is focused around the abuse a daughter goes through the hands of her father, correct?
Yeah.
And as you said, it triggered that whole thing when you saw that play at a college, and also you've been reading about these incidents happening literally on a weekly basis for the past few years. But there must have been something in you, Saif, that said, I mean, if you open the newspaper today, there's so many things happening in the world.
Yeah.
What drew you towards this particular subject?
See, it's very difficult to say what draws you to a storyteller to a particular subject. I think it's very instinctive, and a lot of it is subconscious. So, if a subject stays with you for several months or maybe years, just as this stuck to me, you realize it's time to make it. There's probably a voice within you telling you, go ahead, man, and make it. See, I'm not a social reformer. I'm not a social activist. I'm a storyteller. Something within me must have, in my subconscious, must have moved me to invest my money, to put at stake everything which I had. The reason why I was telling you how I made the film was simply this, that I was so driven by this subject that I had to make it. That's why I borrowed money. I went through all kinds of humiliation just to make this subject.
Okay.
So it's very difficult categorically. See, because I mean, a safe way for me would be to say that I wanted to create awareness. No. All that is balderdash. I as a filmmaker, as a storyteller, I think I just want. I probably there was a lot of empathy. I don't even know. It's just that something within me drove me to the subject. It's only when I started narrating it to a lot of people, and which also included my wife, who happens to be the producer of the film, and several actors, one word started being circulated. I hope this film starts a dialogue. I was not aware of this thing, but a lot of people, while shooting, while reading the script, while signing the agreement, I hope this film starts a dialogue. And I think that is something which is now triggering a lot of my conversation wherever I'm going. That I hope that this film starts the dialogue. Now, this is so it's not something which I had anticipated before beginning the film, but it's the next level which I think we've reached, where the film is complete and people who are watching the film and they're all saying, fingers crossed, let's hope it creates a dialogue. So I'm trying to bring together a lot of stakeholders in. I'm trying to create that human chain which will take that dialogue further.
Okay. Interesting.
And you happen to be one of them. That's why we are talking about it. That's why we are talking about it.
Exactly. So, when did you start scripting the film, Saif?
I scripted it in 2018 December.
In December, okay. And when did you go onto the floors filming it?
Pre-production was 2 years later, November 2020. January 2021, I went on the floor.
And being a feature film, it was what, a 60-day shoot of...
You laugh at me. It was a 12-day shoot.
A 12-day shoot. I'm not going to laugh at you in that way because I wouldn't put anything past you. So it was a 12-day shoot for a feature film, unheard of again. But it's and you shot it all in Mumbai itself?
No, I went to Noida. So I got all my actors, all my technicians in Noida. I put them up in hotels so that there was no distractions, and we shot for 12 days, 12 hours at a stretch every day. It was crazy kind of shooting. I mean, we were jumping from one location to another location and shooting non-stop. We had a very rigorous I'll tell you, money was scarce. We had very little money. So we had to do very intense pre-production. We had to fix everything. We had to decide everything. And then once you get onto the floor, you just have to shoot. You cannot be discussing things there. Okay, should we do it like this? Should we do it like this? No. All that is pre-decided. And then there came a point, maybe after the first day's shoot, second day's shoot, where I kept improvising, and the entire team, including the actors, just went with me. So we did not have. That's why we shot it so quickly. That's how we shot it so quickly, because I think after the first day or second day, everybody understood what the rhythm of the film was, and I would keep making changes, and nobody would protest.
Okay.
I would say, let's do it like this, let's do it like this, let's do it like this. And it would just flow. That's how we shot it so quickly.
So now let's come to the issue on hand at the moment, and which is the abuse of a child to the hands of her own father. Yeah. How big, and I say this respectfully, how big is this problem in India to start off with first?
It's very big. So I consulted a lawyer. I can't give you references, but I consulted several lawyers, and 4% of all child rapes are done by fathers.
That's quite scary, huh? And disturbing.
Yeah. And it's not just relegated to the lower class. It's happening in the upper class. It's happening everywhere. It's happening in the middle class. So the first perception is it doesn't happen in the rich. It's only the servant class or the lower class which does it. No, sir. Sorry. When I wrote the script and I was narrating it to everybody who would care to listen, I was getting stories. So if I narrated the story to a lawyer, I got one story. I narrated to a friend, I get another story. I narrated to an actor, I get another story. And these are all father-daughter stories.
So do you think that this is, and again, it might be a very dumb and stupid question, but do you feel this happening in certain pockets of India and certain pockets of a race or a group of a tribe within India, or is it happening all over the country?
See, again, there's a certain ailment, there's a certain mental illness attached to it. That's why the fact that you are a father, the fact that I'm a father, that's why it's more repulsive. But at the end of the day, we have to understand that it's a sick mind which is operating. Another thing which I discussed, and I had this fear, was that after watching the film, people don't feel People should not feel he's put the fathers in the dock. I've not. I've not put fathers in the dock. So, just as all men are not rapists, all fathers are not rapists.
Correct.
One issue which I've brought up in the film is that if your daughter says something to the mother, please believe her. If a daughter says, I've been molested by an uncle, don't dismiss it. If a daughter says, even my father's done this, listen to her. Don't dismiss her.
Correct.
99% of. So, my film focuses on not just the act, but also the role of the family, what impact it can have on the life of the victim when she grows up.
Okay.
So it focuses a lot on those elements. It's not just about the act of rape by a father. It's also about the trauma which this girl, when she grows up to be a woman, it's about the trauma of your mother not believing you. It's about how will this girl, when she's married, how will she communicate it with her spouse? What is the kind of emotional and physical compatibility she's going to have with her husband? So my film focuses on a lot of these. I wouldn't say focuses, but it does deal with a lot of these issues. Uh, yeah. So essentially, this is what the film is all about. This is where we're trying to sort of get into the mind of the victim. We're trying to figure out how can a victim like this, at least when I was writing the script, how can a victim like this be healed? Is there healing for something like this?
Yeah.
I guess maybe not. Maybe if there is, then it'll take a lifetime. But we've not said anything. I've just let the protagonist of my film take us on the path she is in. I've not spoken for her. I've not even spoken for the villain. I've let him take us along that path. So there is one scene I remember which I had written where this man is telling his daughter, who's now grown up, who's now 35, 40, telling her why he is who he is. So what I did when in the post-production, I shot it with all the regular lines and everything. But in the post-production, I muted his voice and I created a lot of background traffic. I said, let the audience imagine what he is saying. Let us not justify, let me as the storyteller not tell the audience what happened to him. Let the audience imagine it. Let them not feel for him in any sympathetic way. Maybe he himself was a victim of child abuse. Maybe something happened to him. But I said, no, boss, if you understand where I'm coming from.
Absolutely.
How
Absolutely.
I structured the film. Also, despite not being moralistic about the entire thing, we tried to delve into the psychology of especially the victim. What happens to the husband who does not know that my wife suffered this?
Yeah.
He is reeling under the impact of his wife's reactions because he does not know where it's coming from. What about the mother who refused to believe her daughter? And my film is trying to say, mothers, please listen to your daughters.
Saif, there's something that I wanted to it just came to me now. I began podcasting 2 years ago, and in one of my very few podcasts, I actually interviewed a lady who was raped by her father.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is an episode in season 1 called The Act of Humanity, and I interviewed 3 people in that episode. So Saif, now the movie's done. You have it ready with you. It's a product. It's more than a product. Actually, you're literally holding up a mirror to the face of society. What's the plans for the film at the moment? I know you've been to Delhi.
Yeah, I've been to Delhi. Before this, uh, Miss Hema Malini very kindly released the teaser of the film. I showed it to a couple of filmmakers, including Vivek Agnihotri and a lot of them. Uh, then I took the film to Delhi. See, once I had completed it, I could have easily gone to these OTTs and said, take it. The fact is, before I start releasing the film, I'm sure that I'm going to start this dialogue. So I'm bringing a lot of these women commissions, various commissions, women, child safety, law, and we're trying to create some kind of dialogue, some kind of interaction. We're trying to figure out if, because this film also falls under the Beti Bachao program, which the government is trying to propagate. And yes, we simultaneously we are talking to these OTTs. I'm also planning to have a theatrical release of the film. I also want this to be shown in the smaller centers of India, rather than release it on one of these privileged OTT platforms. I want this to be a mass viewing film, and I'm making all these efforts. It's hurting me financially, definitely it is, but I'm holding on to it because I think now I'm gone beyond the phase where I can say I believe in it. I'm now living for it. I'm actually living for the film now. My family is very patiently holding on to what I'm believing right now. But so the plan is now to create an awareness about the subject. Let's not live in denial. Something like this happens. So whenever I mention this to you or somebody or third person, don't feel pukish about it. Just accept it. We know it exists. And that's when the release of this film will matter even more. I'm also confident that when the film releases, a lot of people will come out of the open and talk about their wounds.
Yeah, like the Me Too movement.
Yeah. Okay. I'm very confident of that. I'm very, very confident of that. They'll talk about their wounds. It may not be the father, it may be an uncle, it may be somebody, it may be somebody.
Yeah.
I remember somebody from my past had posted the teaser on her Facebook profile. And one of her Facebook friends came in and said, "Thank you for making this film. My mother had abused it."
Wow.
So people are talking about it.
So Saif, there's obviously this concept that there is a film which is going to be the conduit, the trigger to start the debate. Then there is the debate as well. Now, having lived with this in you for the past number of years, and also put your money and your efforts to make this, what would you like the outcome of this to be? What does we as humanity need from this, you think?
See, I don't know about the movie, but I think as humanity, number one, the basic thing first of all, I want people to stop taking this, looking at this like a stigma. कि इसके साथ तो ये हुआ है. It's that person who's at fault. It's not the victim who's at fault. I'm hoping that as a society, we we become more therapeutic. We become more therapeutic. I was searching for that word. I think our society needs therapeutic souls. We need empathy. We need. We don't need judgments. We don't need judgments. We don't need that attitude. It hasn't happened to us. It can come back to you. It can always happen to you. It can always happen to anybody. And again, as I said, I'm not putting papas and fathers on trial. I'm putting those who scar little children. I'm putting them on trial. I'm asking mothers to believe in their daughters, in their even if it happens to a male child. It does happen to male children all the time. It happens to uh, uh, yeah, it happens. Save children from scars, from getting scarred. And I'm telling you, the biggest way a parent can help their children from uh, getting scars is by listening to them, by believing them, not dismissing them.
I think a film that touched upon this lightly, not as intense as yours, was Monsoon Wedding.
Yes,
The role played by Shifali Shah. That
yes,
whole
yeah, yeah,
yeah, I remember that. So the thing is, hopefully, this is going to start the debate. Hopefully, you're going to get NGOs to sort of be involved
yeah.
in actually owning this topic, not the film, but the topic itself. And hopefully, a lot of people are going to be able to go out and be. How has the mainstream film industry supported you or ignored you so far with this particular subject?
So, there have been a couple who've been supportive. I actually haven't gone out totality. I'm not expecting support. I'll probably expect support once the film releases. I mean, we'll look at that. We'll evaluate whether it's been supported or not. But yeah, some people who we went to, or some of my representatives went to, were very kind. They were very kind. Uh,
Okay.
like I remember Hema Malini, uh, Ravina Tandon, a lot of filmmakers. Uh, they said some very nice things about the effort, about something like this being done. Uh, but I think the overall evaluation will finally happen when the film releases. But and I have no expectations from anybody.
No,
Uh,
fair enough, said. But the reason I say that is because you're such a rich film cinema culture in our
yeah,
country
yeah,
that that besides making entertainment films and whatever, it's this sort of cinema and these sort of messages that deserve the support and the focus spotlight on them. You know, it's
yeah,
great
yeah.
to make the same old stories, but this is great. So I wish you all the very best with this film, and I hope that
Thank you so much.
it gets all the. I hope that the issue gets all the attention that it deserves. The dialogue start. I hope the film, has an impact on this whole movement. And I'm so proud that our PMO's office is in conversation with you to see what they can do about this. I think it's really a subject that a great nation needs to actually address and come to terms with it, and see where we need to fix this right at its root cause. So best of luck, really, from the bottom of my heart. Say best of luck. I really hope that this is going to be that change that the world needs, and
Thank you so much.
can't wait to hear what you're going to do next after Yes Papa. I hope it's going to be something more sort of your domain. I mean, I say that respectfully. Sort
Yeah,
of
I know what you're saying.
back into theater and and so forth.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So there are some very interesting subjects planned. We'll talk about it at another stage when this gets ready.
So, what is the tentative release date for this now?
I would say by the end of the year.
By the end of the year.
Yeah, I'm targeting November.
Okay. And then eventually onto OTT as well, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And the
So
film has
after
been shot in the Hindi language, correct?
Yeah, with smattering English, with some kind of English, a little Bengali as well.
Oh wow!
Uh,
Okay.
a little Bengali because one of the character is a Bengali, and so I said, go ahead and speak in Bengali, and yeah, but overall it's a Hindi film.
Yeah.
The film is in black and white actually. It's in monochrome. Yes, yes.
And very haunting music, by the way. Very.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Very haunting.
Yeah.
Music, seriously.
Yes, we've got 4 songs in the film actually. The music has been done by Mr. Ratnesh Bhagat, and we've done 4 songs. One very interesting reaction we had to the film was that you've not shown murder, you've not shown rape. We've not shown murder actually. We've not shown rape happening. I was very sure of that.
Okay.
I was very sure of that. We're not going to get into any exploitative, any kind of titillation, any kind of exploitation, because we are focusing only on the aftermath. We are focusing on the inner
conflicts.
On the inner conflicts. We're focusing on the demons which destroy us, the inner demons which destroy us. So we're not showing any physicality of sex and post-sex and murder and all that gore. So I tried to make the film as lyrical as possible. Yeah, that's about it.
Sir, as a storyteller, sir, very humbly, we need more storytellers like you in our world.
Thank you so much, sir.
Okay.
Thank you so much, sir. I hope I did not disappoint you with this conversation.
Absolutely not. Everything that you said is just igniting a thought, where we stand as a society and how we've let this happen so far. So thank you for raising it up, and I hope
Thank you
that
so
it
much.
does what it's meant to do.